Let's start out with the plethora of coaches that have been fired recently. Well, the plethora of coaches that have been fired this week, and then there's 3 total job openings now, which is kind of crazy. So we had Tony Sparano go down for the Dolphins at 4-9. A little bit of a surprise, I think, to some people. And Todd Haley, another kind of surprise there after they dropped that big game to the Jets this past weekend. They're at 5-8. Todd Haley is out of there. What are your first reactions to these couple guys getting fired?
First of all, I thought Tony Sparano saved his job after the 5-week stretch the Dolphins have had when they've just come out playing like they're possessed, just blowing the heck out of these football teams. So I really thought he'd done enough to save his gig, but whatever, for the owners that think that they should have made the playoffs, which is, I think, a little preposterous. It's the same owner that thought Chad Henning was the second coming of Dan Marino. So it really, I think it starts up at the top. And the Dolphins really got to figure out who they are as a football team, as a franchise. And once they figure that out, then they'll be able to go in the right direction. I disagree with Tony Sparano's fire. He's a great motivator, pretty good football coach. He got a team which I thought wasn't really that good on paper in the preseason to start blowing teams out. And I thought that was all on him for what he did. The Todd Haley situation, it seemed like from day one of training camp that the Chiefs were just doomed to fail. It just, once you lost Moyaki, who was an integral part of their offense in the preseason. They lost Jamal Charles in week 2, which is their best player on offense, period. And you lose your starting quarterback, Matt Castle. It just seemed like their offense, they couldn't move the ball. What else are you supposed to do? Todd Haley, though, for a guy like him who is just kind of that tough guy, the guy that likes to get in your face, very disciplined style guy, that wears out over time. That's not a thing that you really can sustain as a football coach unless you are, Vince Lombardi's stature, which is very hard to get to. So Todd Haley's days seem numbered from the beginning. I give him some credit for the Chiefs. We thought was one of the worst football teams in the NFL to come out and have the stretch he had. I said that's big on Todd Haley. The biggest surprise I had for both of these is that they were mid-season. I never buy into the whole thing that you can fire a coach mid-season that's going to do anything. Jacksonville also the same thing. I figured if you're going to let a guy go, let the season play out, let guys fight for their jobs, and then let a guy go. I don't agree with the whole sentiment that you just fire a guy mid-season, that's going to all of a sudden light a fire under your football team and is going to change anything. So I think that was really interesting is that those 3 teams decided to pursue that way of action.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused about this Chiefs move because they had a really good run in there without a lot of their top guys, and then they lost Castle, and they picked up Orton off of waivers, and he was injured, and I think he only threw 1 pass. I think he was only involved in 1 play, and who knows how long he's going to be out. And now they're going with their third. Palco's their guy. They've got no running back. I don't understand what they hoped that Todd Haley was going to accomplish this season. I mean, there must be something going on that we don't know about, because I just continue to be confused about why he was fired, because there has to be something going on between ownership and Todd Haley. There's a rift.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because we don't see what goes on behind closed doors. All we see is what happens on Sundays. So we don't see what goes on in practice, and we don't see how the relationship between the owner, the GM, and the coach goes on behind closed doors. And for Todd Haley, a guy who is, the guy likes to get in your face, the instigator type of guy. And he's been known for that. That's his reputation all along ever since he's been in Arizona running the Cardinals offense. You figured possibly it's not out of the question that he might have had a falling out with ownership. Sparano, I just don't see. I think it's more like the owner not realizing what kind of team they are, thinking that, okay, we're the Miami Dolphins, we should be in the playoffs already.
They
I
were
think that's
always
more
sort
like
of, we kind of thought that Sperano was going to go. I'm surprised that it just took this one loss to tip the scales. I mean, because they were playing so well.
And Tony Sperano comes off the same mold from Bill Parcells. I mean, the team was built for the most part on Parcells' talent evaluation when he was running the Dolphins from that GM position that he had, that player personnel head. And now that Parcells was gone, you can start to see his, influence on the team start to drop off a bit. However, Sperano got these guys to play week in and week out. So I don't think this is more Sperano's fault. I thought the Dolphins were bad because they didn't have all the talent they needed. They didn't, as good as Matt Moore was playing, he's not a long-term solution at quarterback. I never thought Chad Henne was either. And as much as I like Daniel Thomas and Reggie Bush as a good running core, and you've got Braylon Marshall receiving, they still got many holes to fill talent standpoint, and that's you got to blame on ownership and the GM.
Now, what about as far as what these teams are looking at? They're probably not going to hire anybody, and some of them can't until the off season. There are three big names out there, right? We've got Jeff Fisher is probably the biggest name because he's probably the most, well, I'll say he's the most likely candidate for any and all of these jobs. And then we have Gruden, and then the third is, who am I getting at?
Bill Cowher?
Bill Cowher, right. Cowher obviously needs a very specific situation to walk into, while as the other two are a little bit more malleable. I think you would agree with that. What do you think about where these teams are going to end up when they're looking for a new coach this offseason?
I think Jeff Fisher will be coaching the NFL next season. I will bet the house on that. John Gruden and Bill Cowher have come out and said, we love the jobs we're in right now. We've got, of course, Gruden's calling Monday Night Football, and Cowher is doing CBS. And I think those two love their jobs so much that you're going to have to absolutely blow them away with a job offer that's going to convince them to leave their current positions with their TV networks to go back to the coaching ranks. So Jeff Fisher is going to be the biggest name. I think he's going to wait and see what's the most lucrative job out there, the best football job out there, because I'm looking at these three jobs. Jacksonville is the most uncertain out of all of them because of their new ownership.
The ownership
you don't know where they're going to be next year. Kansas City, that's a great home stadium to play at. You're probably one of the toughest venues for road teams. But for talent reason, yeah, you've got Jamal Charles, but their offense has got a lot of building to work on. And Miami is probably the least lucrative of the three. They've got a lot of work to be done, a lot of holes to fill. You could probably see them going through the coaching rank, or the college ranks, excuse me. Mike Sherman, a former head coach of the Green Bay Packers, got fired by Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. They hired Kevin Sumlin of Houston. So Mike Sherman's a name to keep an eye out for. I think he's a guy that could be going back to the NFL anytime soon. Steve Mariucci's name pops up there from the NFL Network, of course. He might be a guy worth consideration. They're just looking at a bunch of college coaches. Bob Stoops is always another guy that's his name's out there. Realistically, though, I could see a guy like Mike Sherman get a second gig in the NFL, maybe even Eric Mangini. And if not, it's going to be one of those hotshot offensive or defensive coordinators that really none of us ever heard of until maybe this year because they've had such a good season. Basically, that's how Leslie Frazier got the job in Minnesota last year. He had a really, really big year as a coordinator for Minnesota, and then he ended up becoming the head coach.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that all shakes out. It's pretty interesting. I was sort of wondering when these vacancies would roll around. It kind of took a while, but we're getting there. People are getting fired. Things are all good with the NFL.